Hey guys, before the review starts, I want to give a amazingly big shout out to Purmello over on Twitter for the work that she did for the intro animation that you'll be seeing in this video, and for pretty much all of my videos from now on. She did an amazing job. I can't believe how amazing it turned out. I know I'm using the word amazing a lot, but that's like really the only word I can think of to use. I can't believe how good it turned out, and I will be linking basically all her social media, or Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, everything in the description below. I highly recommend that you go check her out. She's an amazing artist, and she does really good stuff. And yeah, so with that being said, go and follow Purmello over on everything, and I hope you guys enjoy the review. Naughty Dog sure have come a long way, haven't they? What once was a company that was the pioneer of cartoony platforming games in the PS2 era is now the leader of cinematic third-person shooters in the PS3 and PS4 era. While Uncharted may have started that stereotype for Naughty Dog, it was The Last of Us that really cemented them in that light. When The Last of Us was released on the PS3 back in 2013, it absolutely exploded, and when it was remastered on the PS4 a mere year later, even more so. The amount of awards this game received was flabbergasting, and throughout the years, the game has been regarded as a modern classic and is considered by many to be one of the best games of all time. But is it worth all that praise? That's what I'm here to find out. Was this game held to such high standards that it was overblown? Is it little more than a cinematic walking simulator where you need to do little more than press the left stick forward, as some people have claimed? Or is this game actually just that good? Let's take a dive into the spore-infested world of The Last of Us and find out. The story of The Last of Us begins in the year 2013, where a father named Joel is caught in the ever-so-popular zombie apocalypse. In this case, the culprit is an actual type of parasitic fungus that exists called cordyceps, which takes control of the minds of ants and eventually spreads. In The Last of Us, it gets to the point that it can infect humans, and thus begins the end of the world. In the process of trying to escape, Joel's daughter is killed by the military, and then the game jumps to 20 years in the future, where Joel is now a smuggler who, through a series of unfortunate events, is instructed to escort a girl named Ellie across the country to a group called the Fireflies, who intend to use Ellie's immunity to the infection to create a cure. Honestly, the story in The Last of Us isn't anything I would call special. The one unique thing I like is the use of cordyceps as the catalyst for the outbreak, as it makes a lot more sense than the usual zombie infection. The thing that makes The Last of Us 2 such an enjoyable and emotional ride is the relationship between Joel and Ellie as they travel across the country over the course of a year. Joel is someone with little humanity or hope for it left, and Ellie is this sort of source of discovering it again. Their character interactions make the game feel that much more lively, and the side characters are just as good, even if they don't last long. I could probably spend all day talking about why this dynamic works so perfectly, but it's better for you to experience it for yourself. The atmosphere is also incredible, and on the PS4, The Last of Us looks gorgeous, running at a crispy, clean 60 FPS the entire time. You do have the option to switch to a higher resolution at the cost of slicing the frame rate in half, but why you would do that is beyond me. Some of the textures do show their age and make it apparent that this is a remastered PS3 game, but for the most part, it's beautiful to the eyes. The sound design is also awesome as well, with gun sounds that are loud and proud and melee sounds that are chunky and impactful. The icing on the cake is some superb voice acting from Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson as Joel and Ellie respectively. The gameplay in The Last of Us is your standard hit-scanning third-person shooter, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that pretty much 75% of this game involves you escorting someone or being escorted by someone else. However, this time, it doesn't suck due to the fact that your allies actually are helpful and won't go down as easily in gunfights. The weapon variety is pretty standard. You got a semi-auto pistol, a revolver, a shotgun, a sniper rifle, and even a bow and arrow. Everywhere you go, you're scrounging for materials to craft medkits, nail bombs, Molotov cocktails, and various other helpful items. You can also collect spare parts to improve your weapons and pills to improve your physical attributes, such as less weapon sway, more health, and improving your listening ability. This is an ability that allows Joel to listen closely and hear enemies through walls, highlighting them as well. Speaking of enemies, when you're not killing the other humans that end up in your way, you're killing the infected, of which there's surprisingly not too many. You've got your standard runners, which usually go down with a single headshot. You've got the clickers, who are blind and use echolocation to navigate, all the way up to the bloaters, which are humans who have been infected so long that there's a huge armor layer of fungus that's grown around them. They throw spore pods at you, which lower your health over time, but can be dispatched easily with fire. The clickers are by far the scariest enemies in the game for me, as the constant noise that they make when they're walking around unnerves me so much, and sneaking around them always makes me tense. I wouldn't exactly call The Last of Us a horror game, but it definitely gets scary at times. The scariest part of the game to me is this one part where Joel falls into a flooded hotel basement and has to make his way back up. The game turns into full-on horror mode, the lights go out, and it gets genuinely unnerving, creating one of the most tense and scary sections of any game I've ever played. In terms of negatives with The Last of Us 2, most of them that I have revolve around the combat. The melee combat can be a bit wonky later in the game, especially at parts where you play as Ellie, as her switchblade is woefully underpowered and isn't very effective when it should be, seemingly going through enemies at times. Probably my biggest criticism with the combat is that there's no dodge move of any kind. You do get unlimited sprint, but if you get caught in melee combat, it can be a bit of a mess to get free, especially if you get caught by a clicker, which you can't kill with a melee attack without a weapon. Overall, though, it's hard to fault The Last of Us. It tells the story it wants to tell, and the character interactions over the 15 or so hours it takes to finish the game makes it an ultimately rewarding experience that is well worth the $20 that it usually goes for nowadays. If you get it on PS4, it also comes with a short DLC story pack titled Left Behind. Keep in mind that this may contain slight spoilers for the main game, but I'll try to keep them as brief as possible. This is a sort of prequel/story fill-in pack that details Ellie's events before the main game takes place, as well as filling in a bit of the plot between the fall and winter arcs in the main story. The prequel portion details the relationship between Ellie and a love interest of hers named Riley, and is basically a walking simulator at times, especially near the beginning. And the in-between portion involves Ellie searching a mall in Colorado to find some medicine and sutures for Joel after he gets injured at the end of the fall arc, involving a lot more combat and sneaking around clickers and the like. To be honest, I didn't mind this DLC pack all that much, as it's just more of the same with good character development for Ellie, and I got a real Dead Rising vibe considering the areas are mostly rundown malls. I honestly blame Dead Rising for giving me affinity for game areas set in malls. Lastly, I should mention that The Last of Us 2 has a multiplayer PvP mode, but honestly, I don't consider myself good enough at the mode to talk about it, on top of not having spent all that much time with it, and at the end of the day, it's the single-player campaign that people will ultimately remember this game for. Overall, while I wouldn't agree with the notion that The Last of Us is one of the best games ever made, I'd be lying if I said the dynamic between Joel and Ellie isn't one of the best driving forces for a game I've ever seen. The gameplay is serviceable, but it's ultimately the characters that will keep your interest throughout the cross-country road trip to the Fireflies. Even if it's not one of my personal favorites, I can't deny the impact it's had on the world. Just a good thing that the sequel kept this quality, right? Right? Oh, I'm gonna fucking kill you!